They thought they'd sneak one past a floating fortress. Big mistake. On April 1997, the USS Harry S. Truman, a Yalinin-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, was slicing through the Red Sea, leading a carrier stray group near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Clear skies, calm seas, and then it happened. Alarms blared. Radar operators picked up fast-moving blips heading straight for the carrier. Drones armed, launched by Houthi rebels from deep inside Yemen. It wasn't the first time they've tried this stunt, but this time they went bigger. Multiple drones fired over 2 consecutive days, April EMOUST and RND. They weren't targeting a lone destroyer or some commercial ship. They went for the big prize. But here is the thing about trying to hit a U.S. aircraft carrier with repurposed commercial drones. It is like throwing a rock at a tank. Sure, you might scratch the paint, but good luck getting through the armor. This time, the Navy wasn't caught off guard. Defensive systems kicked in high gear. Sailors scrambled to stations, and what unfolded next sent message, not just to the Houthis, but to anyone ever thinking of testing American steel in the Red Sea. So, what happens when a rebel group takes aim at a U.S. supercarrier with Iranian-backed drones? Let's just say the ocean got loud. Let's rewind to the moment just after the alarms went off. The USS Harry S. Truman had been operating in the southern Red Sea as part of Task Force Yawusen, a multinational maritime security force patrolling one of the most volatile shipping lanes on Earth. The threat of Houthi drones and missile attacks had been growing for months, especially after increased U.S. strikes on Houthi launch sites in Yemen. But this was different. This was bold. The rebels were going after the crown jewel of U.S. naval power. It all started on the night of April EMOUST. 2 Iranian Jan-designed drones, most likely Samad-Sen-S long, range loitering munitions capable of flying hundreds of kilometers, were detected by radar as they entered the strike group's defensive perimeter. The Harry S. Truman's Combat Information Center lit up in seconds. The AEGIS radar system on a nearby Arleigh-class destroyer confirmed their trajectory. They were locked in, orders snapped through the ship. General quarters, all hands, man your battle stations. From the bridge down to the lowest deck, sailors dropped what they were doing. Metal boots hammered against steel decks. The air filled with the unmistakable sound of readiness. Hatches slamming shut. The whine of Suez spooling up. Radios crackling with coded commands. The drone veered slightly off course and then went down before reaching weapons range, likely jammed or spoofed by electronic warfare systems aboard one of the escorting cruisers. But the second drone kept flying, hugging the altitude sweet spot just above radar clutter. Then the barked order engage. Within moments, Foul Suez, also known as the Sea Whiz, on board the Truman spun up. It is the last line of defense system. Basically, a 6-Jan-barreled Gatling gun hooked up to a radar brain that fires 10 Wu-Bai rounds per minute. That is Tisha Wu rounds per second. The crew calls it R-Zan-DR, with a bad attitude. Tracer rounds lit up the night like a fireworks finale. A literal wall of lead sliced through the sky. Seconds later, boom, mid-air detonation. Drone turned into flaming debris, rained harmlessly into the ocean. The next day, April RND, the Houthis doubled down. This time, intelligence picked up at least 4 drones launched in sequence. The carrier group was ready. First contact was made about Basha nautical miles out. Guided missile destroyers USS Gravely and USS Mason, both operating as part of the Truman screen, launched Standard Missile R interceptors, or SM-NALMEL. These are the Navy's air defense workhorses. Long range, deadly accurate. And when one hits, it is not subtle. 2 drones were blasted out of the sky in high altitude. The third got close. Too close. It slipped through initial defenses and made it within Shar Uni of the Troman, just skimming over the waves. But it didn't make it far. A rolling sea of Arshahalmi shells from a second CHU's mount shredded it instantly. The 4th drone never made it out of Yemen airspace. A U.S. Navy ABAG Growler, an electronic warfare aircraft launched from the Truman's deck, jammed its comlink, forcing it into a spiral dive. No U.S. ships were damaged, no injuries, just scorched drone parts bobbing in the water like trash in the tide. The message was clear. Come at us again and you'll get the same. What is wild is how normal this has become, though. Since late Downsetting Arshasen, the Houthis have turned the Red Sea into a shooting gallery. Commercial tankers, cargo ships, even warships. Nothing has been off limits. But targeting a U.S. supercarrier, that is a whole new level of insanity. And yet, here we are talking about it. The Truman Strike Group executed its response flawlessly. Tight coordination, layered defense, and total discipline under pressure. Quick question. What would you have done if you were the carrier's commander at that moment? Hold fire and wait, or light up the sky the second the drones breach the perimeter. Let us know your take in the comments down below, because as you'll see next, this ship isn't just floating metal, it is a fortress with teeth. You don't just throw drones at a floating airport and hope for the best. The USS Harry S. Truman isn't your average warship. It is a ton nuclear-powered beast, over 3 football fields long, capable of launching a fully loaded fighter jet every Arshawu-Mouse econs. This isn't a ship. It is a war machine disguised as a city. After the April EMOUS T and second drone attacks, it became painfully clear why going after this thing was a terrible idea. The Truman is part of the NITS class, massive carriers designed to project power across the globe. On board, over Wu-10's ailers and airwing crew, Josha-plus aircraft, and enough firepower to black out a grid. Its defenses aren't just for show. You've got layers. The first is the outer screen, escorting cruisers and destroyers equipped with AEGIS radar systems and SM-series missiles that can swat threats out of the sky before they even get close. Then there is the inner shield, short-range interceptors like the evolved Sea Sparrow missile or ESM, and of course the infamous Sea's turrets. These systems are so fast and so precise they can lock onto and destroy an incoming target the size of a football traveling hundreds of miles per hour in less time than it takes to blink. The ship also deploys advanced electronic warfare tools. It is not just about blowing stuff up, it is also about making sure that the enemy can't see you, can't talk to their drones, and can't even lock onto your position. Jammers, decoys, and radar, absorbing coatings are all part of the toolkit. But the Truman's biggest weapon isn't a missile or a machine gun. It is coordination. Every crew member knows their job. From the radar tacks deep inside the Combat Information Center to the yellow-shirted flight deck crews moving jets like chess pieces, every second counts. And seconds are what separates success from failure. Want to know what it is like when the ship goes into battle stations? Okay, imagine this. The lights shift to red. Boots thunder down meal corridors, and every monitor in the CC lights up like a Christmas tree. Pilots run toward their jets. Weapons team preps sidewinders and harms, and the flight deck becomes a carefully choreographed ballet of chaos. And the captain calm, focused, calling out orders while a $1 billion target floats calmly in contested waters. But this ship isn't running. It is daring you to try again. During the April drone assaults, not a single system failed. Not a single sailor hesitated. That is the edge the Truman has. Training, discipline, and tech that borders on sci-gen-fi. The April EST and second attacks on the USS Harry S. Truman weren't random acts. These drones were launched in waves, timed apart, likely to test detection windows and defense response times. Some were high altitude, some flew low, and some slow across the sea. It wasn't high-gen tech warfare. It was guerrilla tactics gone airborne. So where are they getting this stuff? Mostly Iran. The Houthis have been supplied for years with parts and know-how to assemble drones like the SMAD-10 and the CAS-FE. The SMAD has a range of over a Uni, carries a small warhead, and is GPS guided. Not exactly surgical, but enough to cause chaos, especially when launched in swarms. The CAS-F, think of it as a flying grenade, cheap, expendable, and designed for one thing: impact. They know they can't match us firepower, so they aim to be unpredictable instead. Up next, we'll show you exactly how the Truman made sure these drones didn't stand a chance. So, the Houthis launched their flying threats, cheap, slow, and desperate. But what they didn't count on was what happens when one of those drones dares to get too close. Because while the Harry S. Truman may look like a floating airport, it is built like a fortress, and it doesn't play defense politely. As soon as the first drone was detected on April EMOUS T, the ship's Combat Information Center, or CEC for short, shifted into overdrive. The CEC is the carrier's nerve center. No windows, no noise. Just a room packed with radar screens, threat detectors, comms, chatter, and sailors trained to handle a sky full of bad decisions. The radar lock came from the USS Mason, a guided missile destroyer screening the carrier's starboard flank. Once the drone popped up on Spy 1 radar, part of the AEGIS Combat System, it took just seconds to verify. Not friendly, not commercial, not one of ours. From there, things escalated fast. Combat alert, track confirmed. Weapons free, the destroyer fired first. An SM Now missile streaked into the sky with a sonic boom that echoed across the water. These missiles are designed to take out aircraft and cruise missiles at long range. It found the target at nautical miles and turned it into scrap. But the Houthis weren't done. A second drone came in lower, slower, flying below the radar sweep, trying to sneak in under the ship's scanning horizon. The kind of tactic that has worked before on commercial ships. Not here. On the Truman, the phalanx shoes lit up. The fouls or sea whiz is what happens when the Navy decides to put a chain gun on a rotating turret and give it a radar brain. This 6-barrel monster can track, aim, and fire without human input. It spits out Arshahalmi tungsten rounds at Sitsan Wubai rounds per minute. That is Tishawu bullets per second. A literal wall of lead. Once the system identified the drone, there is no warning. Just a high, jan-pitched whine, a roar of fire, and then silence. Drone gone. Threat neutralized. Nothing left but shrapnel. On April RND, it got even hotter. This time, 4 drones came in from different directions, an obvious attempt to overload the defense net. But the Truman wasn't alone. It had escorts. The USS gravely fired 2 more SM Meow Meows. A growler from the Truman's own air wing jammed one drone mid-zen flight, causing it to lose control and crash into the sea. The last drone, the fastest of the group, came within Shuwayunli dangerously close. But again, the carrier's inner shield held firm. SM launchers activated. The evolved Sea Sparrow missile is a short jan-range interceptor made for these exact moments where seconds matter, fired in under 2 seconds from the detection cue. The SM slammed into the target, detonating mid-air. And throughout all of this, not a single crew member panicked. Not one missed a step. There is a reason why the Navy trains for this every day. Battle drills, response timers, layered defense strategies. These sailors aren't just reacting, they're executing muscle memory. Meanwhile, the Truman's air wing stayed ready. Fa-Ba Super Hornets were armed and fueled. Growlers kept jamming patterns in play. Hawkeyes scanned the skies from above, coordinating the entire engagement picture from Naowen Wuchen Yunchir. And just in case something really went south, fire teams were already suited up below deck. Damage control units stood by. Medical stations were prepped, because when you're floating in enemy waters, redundancy isn't a luxury. It is survival. These systems didn't just work, they dominated. Every single drone was intercepted before it could get within striking distance. No alarms beyond readiness. No damage reports, no casualties. All that was left twisted metal in the waves and a very clear message to whoever was watching. If you come for the carrier, you better bring more than dollar-store drones. And let's not forget the psychological side of this, though. The Truman didn't just defend itself. It humiliated the attackers. Every intercepted drone broadcast a silent failure back to its launch site. Every round fired was a reminder that U.S. carriers don't just float. They fight back, and they fight back hard. If you were commanding the Houthi drone teams, would you try again? Or is that a death wish? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your battle plan. Next up, let's talk about what the U.S. did after the smoke cleared. Because the Navy doesn't just play defense. If you thought the U.S. Navy was just going to wipe drones out of the sky and sail on like nothing happened, think again. Because after those attacks on April EMOUST and RND, the gloves came off. Within hours of the final drone being vaporized mid-air, strike orders were drafted. Satellite intel and drone surveillance pinpointed the likely Houthi launch sites in western Yemen, scattered across remote desert areas and coastal ridgeal lines. These weren't just makeshift launch pads. They were hardened positions, camouflaged, some even embedded near civilian infrastructure. But here's the part that the Houthis didn't calculate. The Harry S. Truman isn't just a floating airfield for defense. It is an offensive juggernaut. And now the carriers weren't going to wait to be hit. They were going to hit first. At Insidinin Schauscher hours on April 10 RD, the call came down. Launch package Bravo. Targets confirmed on the flight deck. A dozen Fa-Ba Super Hornets lined up in a formation. Engines whining, wings loaded with precision jams and AGM Bashabagonsim RM missiles. It was still dark, but the afterburners lit the carrier like a second sunrise. The strike group wasn't going in blind either. Intelligence aircraft, Wujian D Hawkeyes and MQ Joe Reapers provided real Jan-time overwatch. The Navy just didn't want to retaliate. They wanted to surgically cut off the threat at its source. The first wave of strikes hit drone storage facilities near Houthi. Secondary explosions confirmed. Fuel, munitions, and electronics went up in flames. Then came the high Jan speed dash through Houthi-controlled airspace to take out mobile launchers tracked moving inland towards Tees. Meanwhile, U.S. destroyers operating in the Gulf of Aden fired Tomahawk cruise missiles from vertical launch cells, traveling hundreds of miles before slamming into radar facilities and command nodes responsible for directing drone attacks. It wasn't a firefight. It was a message carved into Yemen soil. The Pentagon released a short but clear statement. The United States will respond decisively to any attacks on our forces. We do not seek conflict, but we will eliminate threats before they reach our ships. But this wasn't just a U.S. response. the Harry S. Truman was operating with allies. The French Navy's frigate Jan Sass and a British Royal Navy destroyer also moved into high alert. Both provided sensor data and patrolled nearby airspace in coordination with U.S. Navy assets. Think about that. A multinational naval alliance coordinating real-time drone defense and counterstrikes from international waters. That is power projection. And back on the Truman, the mood was focused, sharp. No victory dances, just professionalism. Pilots returned from their missions, debriefed and rearmed. Deck crews scrubbed the catapults. Command teams updated threat maps. No downtime, because when you're in hostile waters, the next attack is always a possibility. But let's be real, this wasn't just about protecting the Truman. These waters carry global cargo, tankers, freighters, food, oil. Billions in trade move through the Red Sea every week. If the Houthis succeed in turning this into a no-Jan-go zone, the economic shockwaves would be massive. That is why the Navy hit back hard. Because letting one drone sneak through today means shimmy or come tomorrow. Because up next, we're looking at the bigger picture. What does this mean for global security? What happens if the next drone does get through? Let's talk about the aftermath. The strikes were over. The decks cooled, but the tension still sky high. After the U.S. hit back on April 10th, the region didn't suddenly become peaceful. The Red Sea, already a geopolitical powder keg, just got even more complicated. Because when a supercarrier gets targeted and drones start falling out of the sky, the message isn't just sent to the attackers, it echoes across the entire world. And just to be clear that this wasn't just a one-off attack, the Houthis have been increasingly bold, targeting everything from Saudi oil facilities to commercial tankers in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. But going after the Harry S. Truman, that raised the stakes. It signaled that no vessel, no matter how big or well-dented, is off-limits. Still, this isn't over. The Red Sea remains tense. The next drone wave could be smarter, faster, deadlier. The battlefield is changing, and the Navy knows it. But so far, the defenders aren't just keeping up. They're winning one engagement at a time. If tensions keep rising, do you think that it is only a matter of time before a major conflict erupts in the Red Sea? Or will deterrence be enough to keep the peace? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. We want to hear from you. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe for more military deep dives, and tap the notification bell so you never miss when the next story drops. Thanks for watching, and remember, never bet against a U.S. carrier.